Hello there, woman beings, and welcome to another episode of the Woman Being Podcast. My name is Emma, and I'm here, as always, today with the lovely Kelly Ann.
Hello.
And Kelly.
Hello.
And we are joined today by Cami, who we are very excited to talk to. Cami Zea is an artist, and she is the owner and founder of Zea Ink. And we are just really stoked to pick her brain, pick her creative mind, and hear all the good nugs she has to give us. We think you guys are going to enjoy it. And so with all that being said, we're going to jump right in. This is Woman Being,
where we explore thoughts and opinions
and have the freedom to change our minds.
Without expectation or judgment,
we will hold a safe space and support each other
as we navigate together in the form of feminine.
Like I said, we are here today with Cami, and we're going to talk to her about her art and the work that she does. But first, I want to remind you guys that you can find us, Woman Beings, at Woman Being Podcast on Instagram, and we are on all the different podcast platforms. We would really love if you'd be able to give us a review on those, give us a follow. That will help other people find this work, and also you'll be able to give input into what kind of guests we should have, because Cami actually was a guest that was recommended to us by an Instagram follower. So you can have control in this. This is interactive. Anyways, all that to say, Cami, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
We are really stoked to pick your brain. You, first of all, are just such a cool person that we are just honored to be in your presence.
It's true.
So to start out, you're an artist, you're a creative. Could you just tell us and tell the listeners a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I mostly can be found in like a digital space on social media doing digital art. It's a combination of hand lettering and illustration, normally centered around like mental health, feelings, social justice, just basically whatever's on my mind that day. I've been doing art for like about 8 years consistently now, and it's evolved into what it is today. And I feel like I'm like finding my stride. I really like it.
We like what you do too. It's good, like especially in our local community. It's amazing to have. I think there's like a vibrancy here in the creative space, and so it's really fun when there's things like that showing up at the coffee shop and, stickers or whatever. Yeah. Little pieces of your art.
I have some of those stickers.
Yeah, on her water bottle. Yeah. So it really like adds color and culture to our little town.
Cultureless town. I mean, it has a culture. I mean technically, but yeah.
Just the NorCal culture.
Yeah, it's a kind of culture. Yes.
State of Jefferson.
Yes, I heard about State of Jefferson on like a national news podcast recently, and I was like, I live there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, anyways, if you guys don't know what State of Jefferson is,
look it up.
Google it. That's
don't
where we
tread
live.
on me. Yeah, just kidding.
But like seriously though, that's kind of what we're about. Not we, but like we.
The collective, yeah.
But I heard basically you've transitioned full time to your artistry recently. Well, in the last year or so.
Yeah, it happened like toward the end of last year. I think it was in October.
Awesome.
Yeah,
How's that been?
Best month of the year.
What's that like?
That's when I was born.
Really?
That's when you were born.
All of you?
Yes.
Wait, what day?
Different days.
I'm October 4th.
I'm 25th.
And I'm the 31st.
I'm the 9th.
Wow.
Libras.
Yeah, so you guys are the same, because we're both Scorpios, because we're at the end of the month. So then you guys are the Libras. Wow.
Wow. This is amazing.
is.
This is October room.
Yes.
Spooky podcast.
Oh my gosh.
So watch out. But yeah, how's that been? Right. You're a full-time artist. That's amazing. Like I think that's the life that many dream of. So you're doing it.
Yeah. I think every day I'm like reminding myself that I'm doing it. It was just like a solid 8 years of doing this as like a side hustle, like hobby, like trying to figure out how I could like stand on its own like legs and like really be like a substantial thing that supported me. And it kind of happened suddenly. It wasn't exactly like I planned, but I think the timing was really good. It's definitely challenging though, you know, especially like the beginning of the year is just like notoriously slow for any sort of like brands and any business. And I think it's been challenging for me to like have so much space to kind of create whatever I want, because a lot of the way that I support myself is designing for hire for other people, individuals or businesses. And so having this much time just to make whatever I want has been surprisingly stressful because I'm like, I can do whatever I want today. And then I'm like,
I'd be like,
So what do I
paralyzed
do?
by the
yeah, exactly.
options.
And I'm like, I can do anything. And it's like, I actually didn't realize how helpful it was to like have someone telling me what I needed to do that day, or like have like responsibilities or expectations from like working in like, you know, the corporate world for a while. But, you know, I'm figuring it out every day. It's mostly very fun. Like, I feel incredibly lucky to be here. I really didn't know if it would ever happen. And I'm really just hoping I get to be my own boss forever. So
Yeah.
I'm a pretty fun boss.
Yeah, that's, I would believe it.
Yeah, you have your own best interests in mind.
Yeah.
I give myself lots of raises,
Yeah,
lots
amazing.
of breaks.
Yeah.
Holidays, every holiday.
All the holidays.
Yeah,
National Pajama Day. Like,
Yeah.
I'll do it all.
exactly.
Yeah. We do inclusive holidays at Zea Ink.
And your staff probably just loves that. Yeah.
They love me. all of them being my dog.
Oh my gosh. That's so cute, though.
Well, I mean, a dog is the best employee because
Yeah.
they're going to always be loyal to you.
Yeah.
It's true.
They're never going to just, you know, abandon you or run out on you for a better job.
Yeah. And she doesn't even know that I like use her to like get people to like me more on the internet.
Sure.
So
She's free labor.
yeah.
Yeah,
It works
perfect.
out well for me.
Yeah.
So, but then before that, I mean, you were kind of building your career and working full time. So how was that, like, sort of balancing the like day job with sort of having, you know, the creative dreams that you were going after?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think overall it was a lot of less balancing and more just like integrating the two in ways that like probably weren't as beneficial for my employer, to be perfectly honest. Like, especially if I had like desk jobs, I was doing a lot of like administrative work. So it was a lot of like bringing projects with me to work to like do on breaks or on my lunch, like sometimes waking up early to meet deadlines and working on at night, working on the weekends. Hustling, as they say, you know, just a lot of not being able to have a lot of balance because you're needed completely in two separate ways. But, you know, I wouldn't change it. It was worth it.
Yeah, I totally resonate to the grind life that you mentioned. I mean, we have this project.
Exhibit A.
We are also doing another project currently on the side, and
Quite the project.
Quite the project, and I mathed out that I'm looking at roughly like 35 hours of work outside of my 40 hours of work. And so I resonate, feel the pain and the love, right?
Yeah.
It's truly a love.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you wouldn't put yourself through what you do.
No.
The sleepless nights, the, oh yeah, I'll just get drive through one more time, you know, like.
Yeah, for sure. Like abandoning all your like needs because the thing that you love so much is like taking up all of your energy. So you don't even realize that you're actually neglecting yourself a bit while you're also doing the thing that you love.
Right. But you're reaping the rewards of that
Absolutely.
now, which
Absolutely.
is amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm sure a lot to balance. So switching gears though a little bit, you've been involved in the Christian church in the past quite a bit, as we all have. All of us here. And so I'm really curious to know, how has the church played a role in your art? Because you've, you know, really evolved. And now you're really outspoken with your art, which I find a breath of fresh air in this community.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to give credit where credit's due, for sure. Like, as layered and kind of tense as the association can be sometimes. Like, I think I am really grateful that this community had options for me to be a part of whenever I was first starting out, and really wouldn't have known how to like get my foot in the door otherwise. Like events at church, like local markets. Like, we live in a smaller town that is like a church town, but I think they do value creative people, like doing creative things. So the thing that I think has been interesting about the involvement is whenever I first started, I felt like all of my art was around what other people were saying. It was a lot of quotes of like leaders, speakers, songs, different things like that. And as I kind of transitioned out of being really invested in the church and kind of finding my own path, I started actually saying what I thought about things. And that to me is like the most special part of the journey. And I am really grateful for having outlets before, but I much rather say what I have to say than say what someone else is saying.
Yeah, that's super fair. I mean, I think it's a whole process and journey, right? Of like pulling away from being like, frankly, a microphone. Like, and that's not just you, that's everyone, right? That's come up in really strong religious circles. But what is that like the process of finding your voice? Because I found as you challenge what you've believed for so long, something different feels wrong for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it is very alienating whenever you're separating yourself from that kind of lifestyle, basically, because so much of your life, who the things that you do, they're all centered around this one like core value and like institution. And so whenever you're like slowly separating yourself, putting a lot of distance between it, and starting to think other things that are especially challenging for all the things that you've been taught, I mean, it was very lonely. And so much of you feels wrong. So much of you feels bad, even for starting to entertain new thoughts, and even just feeling comfortable about thinking those new thoughts feels wrong. Like it feels like you should feel worse, basically, about thinking new things. And it's strange that it's confusing that it doesn't, that you feel peaceful about the new things that you're thinking, because you've always been taught that it's the evil of the world to participate in XYZ thinking.
Right. Which is probably was a huge tension as an artist, and wanting to like push out like your own personal thoughts and maybe different messaging. And I can't imagine that journey, because it's, what you put out into the world. It's very different, I think, than just a personal thing.
Well, especially because, growing up in the church, you're taught pretty much from day one that like you have such a deep, important call on your life. Like, what you do with your life will change the world.
Right.
And so there's so much, I think, over responsibility in what you have to say with that sort of teaching, and so much pressure of like, I'm leading this. I'm impacting everything around me.
People's souls are at stake.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I'm responsible for the things that I'm teaching in this world, and I'm going to be held accountable whenever I die for everything that I have to say. And I don't believe that now, but in the beginning, that was really hard. That was really difficult, because I felt like I was going against maybe what I had formerly believed I was like here to do.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's like the stakes are high enough that like a painting or a drawing that I've made could be up on someone's wall that's going to inspire them to do the thing that they need to, or whatever. And then as bad as the painting that I drew could be up on someone's wall and like drive them into total destruction.
Right.
Damnation.
And it's true. Like the pressure is crippling.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah. And anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, I think too about, I feel like a lot of what you're referencing in terms of like feeling the fear or the loneliness as you're sort of breaking down what your religious beliefs were, is what a lot of people call deconstruction nowadays, right? And there's a lot of this pushback against deconstruction because I hear a lot of the rhetoric that, oh, you're just doing this because being a Christian is like too hard, or this is like the easy way out, or you just want to sin, And I've specifically this one account that I follow pretty closely. I don't remember the guy who runs its name, but it's the New Evangelicals. He talks a lot about the pain of deconstruction and how he genuinely has been exiled by friends that he like had beloved relationships with for decades. He was kicked off of the worship team at his church, and he loved playing drums on the worship team, like all these things, because he started to deconstruct what his beliefs are. And he is always bringing up the point that like he didn't do that to like have more fun, like he didn't do that to like go the easy route. It's actually a very difficult and isolating and painful route. And I think with you especially, like your art was tied to this, so it's not like, or at least I imagine that it's not like you thought, oh, I will be able to, be more successful as an artist if I, break down these beliefs, when like it seems like a lot of your pool was like this like faith-oriented clients and things like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think there was definitely so many moments where I was like, one, feeling like a fraud whenever I was like making the things that I was making. Because I just knew that I wasn't invested the same way that I was before, or that I was writing about things that I knew I didn't really believe in anymore. And there was so much worry around what would happen if I pivoted messaging, or what would it even look like for me to just say whatever it was that I was feeling or thinking. I didn't, just to go back to the deconstruction thing, like, it would have been so much easier for my life if I would have never been confused and upset around all the things that I had been teaching, or felt like all my trust was broken from leaders whenever they were supporting things that felt just very deeply wrong in my soul, that were going on in the world. Like, it would have been so much easier for my life, and I would have kept status and friends and family, that I've lost. I think deconstruction is a huge grief process. It's all just, it's so much loss, and then the gain comes so much later. But the initial phase of it is not easy by any means, and I've had so much less fun.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Since then.
It's so true. I mean, it is a true grief. It's a true, like, soul-crushing experience. I mean, I remember when it fully ramped up and smacked me in the face, and I felt, like, broken.
Yeah. I mean, who wants their foundation ripped out from underneath them?
Right.
Like, it's terrifying to put everything that you've ever been taught on a table and start, like, tossing it away. Like, no one wants to do that. Like, you get to that point because the same, like, voice inside of you is tipping you off, like, that something isn't right, something isn't making sense, and we're taught to follow peace, and it's interesting where that leads a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's, I think it gets to a, like you're saying, a breaking point where you can't walk in, I guess, like, ignorance or feigned naivety any longer. It gets to the point where, especially I think, like, as a Christian, if you really believe in, like, doing good, then to me, like, deconstruction is a very logical path to go down, because I think that it often leads to doing more good, to wanting to be more loving to people, and to what I would argue is more Christian. And so it definitely
Yeah,
makes
well,
sense.
the myth there is that people are leaving the faith to, sleep with their girlfriend or, be able to smoke pot on the weekends or whatever. And
which you can totally do as a Christian.
People are doing currently right now.
Yes.
At this moment.
All of those things together.
Yeah, like every second, this many people. I don't know. So yeah, it's sort of like trivialized, I guess. But it's actually like in the pursuit of the things that Jesus taught, I think that people go down this road. It's in the pursuit of love your neighbor and care for the widowed and the orphans and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is that for sure. There's also, I think, people who have been just so deeply like hurt by church communities that it's just not. I mean, it's not healthy. It's not really possible, at least in that time, for them to even be around that. So I think there's different realms of it,
right?
Because I tend to have a very I guess like positive view of deconstruction, but I also recognize that there's times where it's like there's just been so much harm done.
And a lot in my case, there was a lot of like, oh, this is actually really rotten and very vile, like some of the stuff that I'm experiencing in these four walls. And so if that's the case, like, is this sort of belief system that I've grown up with really true? Like, if it's not actually affecting people in at the heart level in a way that would create a healthy, safe environment for peoples to live in. And anyways, it's all very interconnected in the midst of it. But yeah, I think I just hate the trope that people quit church so that they can do fun stuff. Because sometimes they quit church because they are genuinely seeking out what they have been taught.
Yeah.
And they're looking for that kind of kindness and compassion.
Also leading church doesn't equate to leaving God behind either. Like I have a huge amount of distrust with church and at this point like no interest to be involved in one, but that doesn't mean that I have been like, oh, to hell with God. And it's all just so fake, which I mean, some people need to do, and that's totally fine. Right. But like, there's this equation of the two of like, now you've just turned your back on God and you're like atheist or something and you just threw the baby out with the bathwater or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's just not true for so many people.
Yeah.
Right.
I think if anything, my view on people is like so much more centered around like action and love, so less just about like what I'm here to do in the world. And my view on God is so much more simple in a way that has just made my life so much more spiritual. Because before it was all like, I just don't want to go to hell.
Yeah.
Right.
And now it's like, oh wow, I think I'm recognizing the people that Jesus would stop for in these stories. And they're the people I'm stopping for too. That's interesting. Maybe I look more like Jesus now than before without going to church.
Wow. Novel idea.
Maybe.
Hot take.
And I mean, I think that that's also comes from a really limited view of God, the idea that someone stops going to church and then they don't have God. Like, it's the idea that, do you really think that God is only within a specific church, like, or that God is only within this, like, in this one way to interact with the divine, that's it. I think it's kind of ridiculous, honestly.
Yes.
And even if you look at, you're talking about like being more like Jesus, like how often did you see Jesus in the church? Like Jesus was also like out amongst the people. Jesus was rebuking the church a lot. Jesus was, like flipping tables in the church, the like classic example that people bring up. But a lot of criticism of the church came from the Christ. And so it's it's a really limited view of God in my opinion. But in that same sort of, in that realm, as we're moving on from like sort of deconstruction and the ways that your art has been like intertwined with faith, your art has also become intertwined with sort of advocacy and social justice. And so what was it like finding your voice as like an advocate then, in and being an artist in that space now?
Yeah, that I definitely feel a lot of weight on that type of word, like activist, advocate. I definitely have been kind of grouped into that category, and I completely understand why. I think it just like it makes me sweat a little bit whenever I'm like, no, I don't do enough. Please don't call me that. You know, but it's fine. That's just my own thing I'm working out. But you know, I think I have always been a really outspoken, opinionated, passionate person. And I've always been a person of like justice, you know, like it looked a little bit different whenever I was like in the church. But,
Sure.
you know, just like as an individual, I get really worked up and moved by unfairness and oppression. You know, so naturally, whenever things happened a couple summers ago, George Floyd's death, that, you know, really shook so many people, myself included. And I just started talking about it. Like, to me, I just can't imagine not discussing something so pivotal for our society. And you know, whenever you like peel back the lens of oppression, marginalized communities, it's never ending. Like there's so many different communities, there's so many different forms of injustice, and it's an interesting space to be in because there's a lot of responsibility and people expect a lot of you. But I'm not an educator. I'm just someone who's really passionate about this not existing in the world. And that's like the best that I can do is just like talk about how I feel about these things and the ways in which maybe we could change our perspective toward them and eventually heal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, in a similar way that you were amplifying the voices of people within like a church community, you can also use your art to amplify voices who are advocating for justice, which is really, really cool. Like, because I mean, art is so impactful. Like art, just to put some more pressure on you, art, like I think people get so deeply moved by works of art, and it's a huge way that people start to consider different points of view, or how people's minds start to change, because I think people often feel more open to consuming a piece of art than, I don't know, just listening to like an activist's speech about something, you know, like it feels like a softer way to start to push people in another direction, you know? And so I think that's like, it's really, it has a lot of potential for influence, which I'm feeling very much like I sound like those Christians who talk about having all this influence, but like there's a tension in that because, I mean, art has influence, I think, just inherently. I think that Christian churches have sort of often recognized that and commandeered art in that way. Not that that's necessarily negative or positive, but it has been used. So, you have such opportunity to spread those messages and to put it in a way that's also really beautiful. So,
yeah, well, and also like you're a woman, of course, and a woman of color.
what?
And so you offer your unique voice as a fiery, passionate human, but also like as a woman and as a woman of color, you have a unique perspective that you give. So how has that kind of influenced your art, or maybe the way that you present the things that you want to say? Or maybe I'm kind of saying the same thing over and over again, but how does that play a role?
No, I get what you're saying. You know, like I mentioned, being like really passionate, emotional, like very easily worked up, to be honest. Like, if it's something that I care about, you know?
Same. That's why we have this podcast.
Right.
Us October-born women.
Yeah. Something in the air that month. Yes. No, but I think, you know, most of my life, like, those qualities have been, like, used against me or used to discredit me in so many ways. Just being, like, emotional in general, like, hyper emotional. I'm a person who I think, like, feels very deeply, like, you know, whatever. Like, I know people love to, like, whatever, but, like, I'm not, like, I'm a feeler. I'm just, like, I feel like I can just really tap into an emotion and, like, fully be in it, and it can just kind of, like, overtake me. So that has, for most of my life, kind of been a reason as to not, like, trust the things that I'm talking about, because there's not enough you know, foundation to them, or perhaps there's not enough research or information under my belt, you know, for me to be able to talk about these things. And something in me really shifted whenever I first started talking more about social justice stuff online, because, you know, before that I had just talked about, like, just kind of some of my experiences in the world, like mental health type stuff, and, like, every once in a while would dip into, like, social justice things, but not really, like, full sprint at this topic. And I think, honestly, just the fuel of people not taking me seriously just, like, pissed me off enough to be really loud about it and be like, fuck you. I actually do know what I'm talking about, and I actually have personally experienced some of these things, either just from watching them or directly. And so you can't discredit this, because I've seen it with my own eyes and I felt it in my own body. Like, it's real and you can't tell me otherwise. And so I'm not going to shut up about it. I'm just going to be really annoying and louder about it. So, you know, it's just kind of like being petty, I guess. Like,
No,
petty for the good of the world.
not at all.
That doesn't sound petty. That sounds like, how dare you, like, eradicate my experience just because you disagree. Like, what I've gone through is just true. It's not a matter of statistics or logic.
Because it was interesting, because, you know, obviously opening up some of these conversations for the first time, like, having, like, blatant racism thrown at me, and having, like, so many, especially, like, white dudes on the internet telling me, like, how not true some of the things that I were talking about were. And I was like, this is my literal lived personal experience. This is the world that I grew up in. It's true. Like, so if I know that I know what I'm talking about, I can just double down on it, and I won't get swayed by other people not believing in me. I mean, it's frustrating, but I think it definitely has been fuel to, like, keep the fire going, because I do know how easy it is for people to be discredited, and there's so many people who genuinely have something to offer educationally or just from sharing lived experiences.
Yeah. Which doesn't sound petty to me. That sounds like some bad bitch energy. Honestly.
Just I want to say, commenting on an Instagram post about how someone is wrong, that's petty.
Yeah. I'm just like, how do you have, like, time for that? You know? It's amazing.
God. You have no idea what people had the time for a couple summers ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, people have told us that
people had an abundance of time, especially then with the pandemic.
I have limited all my comments to only people who follow me, and that was a game.
Good for you.
Sure.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, oh, death threats, no thanks.
No. Yeah, we've actually been told that we should not have children.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yes.
Because
and I'm like, good, I don't want them. So.
you're like, joke's on you. Yeah. But it's hard. I think that, you know, you need both. You know, you need the statistics, you need the hard facts, you need the research, and you need the lived experiences, the stories. You need all of that to sway people, to get a message across. I was actually listening to a podcast, I think, and they were talking about, it was an interview with two men who are in the LGBT space, but also Christians, and I think one of them was even a minister of some sort, or maybe a reverend, and they were talking about how their mission is to give the story, is to give the thing that's going to humanize people, that they're going to empathize. They were like, there's tons of books and literature about like how to interpret different Bible verses around homosexuality. You can go and read those, but like we want to give you the story of how how people have still met God and been gay, you know? So I think that both of those are so valuable, and so similarly with you, like getting to share, this is the experience, this is the story, this is what has happened. And then there are plenty of ways that people can find the statistics, the hard facts, the studies, the research that's been done, because it exists. It's not like this is coming out of like thin air, like this is all within the ether. And I think too about these, you know, the white men on Instagram, if you will, to them.
We should we gotta come up with like a Karen version of the white men on Instagram that comment
like
on things.
Steve or something. Oh, that's actually
Maybe like
that's not a good name.
Chad.
Chad is a good one. That is good.
The Chads.
Chad.
Yeah. So Chad. Chad's experience has been very different in the world, right? To Chad, things have gone very easily, probably. Chad has experienced a lot of privilege that he probably has not been aware of. And I think that it can be hard for the Chads of the world to be confronted with an experience that doesn't match up with their own. But, like, I feel like, you know, any marginalized group that you name, like, has been experiencing their experiences and then also being told the, like, more privileged experience because that's, like, the quote-unquote, like, dominant cultural experience, like, in the West. And so the Chads have not, like, that they feel affronted, I think, by the idea of an experience that's different from their own. Whereas, you know, women, people of color, people in the LGBT space have had to recognize the Chad's experience and their own experience at the same time, and recognize that there are many experiences of how to I'm going to say experience again, but how to relate to the world, how they've interacted with the world, and the ways that the world has treated them. So.
Well, yeah, and as someone who has not studied, but like I am in commercial marketing, a lot of my like video work that I do professionally is in that space of like trying to influence someone's decision for a product or in the past for a religion or, you know, a fund or a donation or whatever. And one thing that I've learned that is pretty clear across the board, and it continues to be reinforced by research, is people actually make their decisions like 99% based on emotion and on their feeling. And we like to think that we're more logical than that. And we like to think that the facts and the, you know, the logic and the reasoning are the things that we put together in our minds to purchase a product or develop a way of thinking or choose to donate our money to something. But actually it's our emotions that are actually the linchpin for decision making. And in that, like you said, we need the research, we need the facts to back up what we're saying, but more importantly, we need the human stories that say, hey, this has been my experience, and this is why, and this is what I've gone through, and this is what I believe for. You know, it's that human element, I think, that makes all the difference in who we are as a society.
Yeah. I mean, the second we dehumanize someone, it makes it easy to just continue to treat them poorly. But if you can put a face and a name and a story to a topic of conversation, I think I can't really imagine how that wouldn't stir up empathy and compassion for what someone else is feeling, even if you can't understand it. But, I mean, yeah, the second you're like, that's not real, and I don't know anyone who's ever experienced that, then of course it's easy to write it off.
Totally. And I love to echo back to what Emma said earlier about data. Like, that gives me chills. I think data tells a story, and it's so important.
Kellyanne's giving like a little data boner over here. Like,
I do love it. But Brene Brown has a quote where she says, everyone has a story that'll break your heart. And if you really listen and ask questions, everyone has a story that'll bring you to your knees. And I think those stories are being amplified right now. And maybe the Chads of the world are like, whoa, I don't want to be brought to my knees. But everyone's like, no, you need to hear it.
Yeah.
And it hurts. It really hurts.
And Chad's problem is he thinks that he is of sound logic and reasoning and, like, he's got the facts and the science or whatever. But the truth is, Chad's belief, his decision-making, everything that he understands to be true about the world is based on his emotional reaction to the stories that he's heard in his life. And so much of his belief system is actually built on his own emotion toward certain topics and not about logic or reasoning or facts or whatever. And so it's kind of it's sort of, as advocates, moving into the direction of the story-based storytelling backed up with research. And from Chad's perspective, it's realizing, oh, okay, I actually have created a narrative in my mind that I emotionally feel attached to, whether that's from fear or, you know, my upbringing, because I really loved, you know, the role model that my parents were or whatever, you know, whatever that sort of experience may be. And this is sort of getting, like, way off track, but there's a double barrier to overcome is what I'm saying, I guess.
Sure.
But
I mean, I want to also recognize that many of us have probably to varying degrees also had a bit of Chad within us.
oh, we all, everyone's
all
got
got
an
a
inner
little
Chad.
Chad.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like everyone's got a little bit of Karen. Just
Yeah,
like a little
sure.
bit, even though you don't want to acknowledge it sometimes.
Yeah.
I've called the manager over.
Yeah.
I 100% will call the manager over.
1000% has called the manager
I have.
over. But I mean, in the sense
I'll
of the
stand by
Chad, in the sense of the Chad thing, like, I mean, there's times where I have, like, been a Chad in my whiteness or in my straightness or in my feelings
Straight
about
size.
reproductive
Sure.
rights and, like, all those different things. It's like there have 100% been times where I have had those blind spots and probably still have blind spots. Like, I would be
Always.
naive to think that I don't. And you know, we just got to grow from our
all are
our
grow-
little Chad selves.
But to circle it back though, I think art and that expression of art is it's all a form of storytelling in one way or another, and that is I mean, again, we're talking about how not to put so much pressure on your art, but it is that sort of self-expression that changes the world, that changes society.
It is.
Makes it a better place.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I've learned the most in the past couple of years, because that's kind of when my account really started getting more traction, and whenever it was like, okay, there's like more eyes on this, and there's like more conversations being had, is like, the fastest, like, deepest way that I could actually impact any spaces that I'm in is to just, like, live the life that I'm saying is valuable, or walking the walk, essentially, you know? Like, I spent a lot of energy whenever I first, like, started really, like, delving into, like, that kind of narrative of just, like, going externally with it, of, like, you need to do blah, blah, blah. They are doing da-da-da. Like, you know, that sort of thing. And then it's like, once I went more internal with it and I just started sharing how I was feeling, my experiences, the things that I've learned, and just kind of, like, the hope that I have for the world, I feel like it changed the pace of what I was doing, and it changed the feeling connected to what I was doing. And then I was like, oh, I think this is actually the key for me personally, because I'm not an educator, because I haven't, like, deeply studied these things, and I'm not trying to do, like, infographics on stuff. I'm just trying to, like, exist within myself and share that in ways that make sense. But yeah, that really changed the game for me, as far as, like, creating for myself, and too, still with the angle of wanting to say important things about important topics.
Yeah. I think that's what's powerful, though, too, because you're very, like, hope and love focused. Like, you have very positive art, but I feel like.
No, I'm just thinking about myself as a person.
But, like, I feel.
You're like, am I ray of sunshine?
I mean, I think you're delightful. You're honest, though.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
what's important, right? And there can be hope and love and wanting for good for everyone in honesty, and you need that, I think. And in a way, it's like your art kind of seems like your process.
Yeah.
And so I think that in that way it's relatable and feels safe and does take some of the pressure off, because a lot of it is you and your story and what is going on internally. And I think that's really, one, vulnerable and brave, but also two, beneficial, like to everyone that gets to observe.
Thanks.
Well, and you mentioned too, kind of balking at like the word advocate or what is it? Activist or whatever. And so maybe you've already answered that question in this, but do you ever experience imposter syndrome? And it seems like probably yes. Don't we all?
Who hasn't?
But how have you handled that, and how do you manage the pressure of that feeling?
Yeah, I would say anyone creating today is going to have some form of imposter syndrome, especially because the world that we exist in allows you to see like every form of art, like literally a million people doing the same thing that you're doing and better, or just in ways that you like wish you could, and that's just not who you are or something. Like I think that the comparison trap of creating on social media like is going to breed imposter syndrome. And I think too, just as an anxious person, I think it's easy for me to just get like really in my head about what I'm doing and kind of spin out mentally. But like I try to not look too much at what other people are doing that are doing things similar to me. Like there's so many people that I respect who are like making brilliant, beautiful work. But sometimes I just can't ingest it, because then I'm going to immediately stack myself up next to it. And so, of course, then I'm going to feel like, oh my gosh, when is everyone going to figure out that I'm actually not an artist? And when is everyone going to figure out that like none of the things that I think are original or unique? And I think just, imposter syndrome sounds a lot like my anxiety. So, and so with that, I think, things that I've had to learn with my like anxious brain is just like everything that I think isn't true, which is something I'm always trying to remember, is like my thoughts are often very external coming in, and it's not actually what I believe, and that's not actually what's true. And so basically just like staying in my own lane is the only way that I can do that, of just being like, someone can be doing something really good and I can also be doing something really good, and they have nothing to do with each other. Like we're all creating beautiful art, and if it's honest, then I can't be like making all of this up. Like if it's truly what I think and feel and something that I've like lived, then I can't be a fraud, because it's my real life. It's my real truth.
Yeah,
that's good. And there's also like the pressure, the social media pressure, right? Like you keep up an account and you have to like post a certain amount, and you're trying to keep your audience engaged and all of those things, in addition to just trying to be true to yourself. So how do you manage that sort of pressure?
Yeah, I mean, that's a daily struggle for sure. Like, I think there's so much overthinking things that I'm doing on there, being like, that feels a lot like me. Are people going to understand that? Or, there's so much perception with social media and like being perceived by other people. So, yeah, obviously it's like a very consumption-based model. It's like, give me more, and even more. The more you post, the more they want it. And that is just like not attainable, especially whenever you're trying to share so much of yourself in this space. It's like, I can throw something up every day, but, I want to really mean it, and I want to really feel connected to it. And sometimes I am totally just playing the game, and I'm just like, I'm recycling an old piece I did good a long time ago, or like something, there's a hot topic going on, so I'll just kind of scribble something out and like make it look cute and just toss it up. But I think every day is just toggling back and forth between trying to stay true to myself and also still trying to be successful with what I have, which is social media. Like, that is how I get a lot of work, and that is how people find me to, like, buy my art. So, you know, it's not my favorite thing, but it just is what we have right now. And so, you know, just trying to do the best that I can with it and not let it determine my worth and determine the worth of the art that I make.
Right.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's one thing that a lot of creatives I think have a love-hate relationship with the social media game. Actually, a YouTube creator that I follow was speaking yesterday about how the one thing that she wishes she could change about her job is like the algorithm. Like she wishes that first of all, like she spoke on how the algorithm is biased towards specific types of people, herself being a thin, like generically attractive white woman gets more traction than other people may who are not the like favored people within various algorithms. But also just the fact that you kind of do have to play that game, but at the same time, it's that game that has given you so much opportunity and that has let your work be spread far and wide and has like sustained you.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's definitely a lot of tension within that. And I think that sort of is always the tension with art is between, you know, the authenticity of the artist versus the, you know, the sellability, if you will, of the art. And yeah, it's hard going back and forth between that because you gotta live,
Right.
and you gotta make money to live, and so it's a necessity. But also, you talking about the imposter syndrome stuff makes me think of this Nick Cave quote that I really love, which says that nothing you create is ultimately your own, yet all of it is you. And I think about how when I was in school studying photography, like our professors did a lot where they had us ingest a lot of different artists' work. And it was like, okay, like just copy what you like. Copy it. And I was like, this seems wrong to do. This seems like unethical. Like isn't this like artistic plagiarism or something? But the thing is that at the end of the day, when you're making it, there's no way that you can 100% recreate what someone else has made. And you put your own spin into it, and your own, you know, sort of essence becomes infused within that because art is so personal too. And the thing is that at the end of the day, whatever you put out is still you. You know, like you, even if it's a thing that's quote unquote going to work well with the algorithm, it is part of you. You're not just, you know, copy pasting someone else's work, even though you are, you know, I guess working smart as an artist in that sense, which is, I think, can feel inauthentic to the like idealized, the artist just like lays on their chaise lounge and allows the inspiration to wash over them, and the creative gods just bless them with a touch from the heavens, and then out comes the most beautiful masterpiece. It's like, no, that's not true or practical.
I wish. I mean, honestly,
that sounds great.
If only.
I make trash art like half the time. Like no one will ever see, or I'm like, because the one thing that does keep me really connected to the stuff that I make and trying to make a lot of it, like sometimes it is for social media, but it's also good exercise for myself to just keep writing, keep thinking, keep drawing, you know, whatever. Writing my own quotes is what helps me stay engaged in that way a lot. Like very, very rarely will I use anyone else's words whenever I'm doing things, and that does help it feel really authentic. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely times whenever I'm like recycling content, which is like working smarter, not harder kind of thing, because it is still kind of like a business page and it's social media. But you know, that doesn't mean that I feel the same as whenever I first made it. I'll be like having a shitty day and I'm just like, I haven't posted in 4 days. I guess I should throw something up there. But yeah, the core of it is still there. You know, the essence of it is still real. I still meant it.
Yeah.
Right.
I just
Yeah.
was in a bad mood whenever I posted it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, some of that is also just the magic of social media.
Yeah.
Well, and I think maybe too, like overcoming the myth that like the art comes when the stars are all aligned and it just flows out and you post it on Instagram with the perfect, mood and intention and whatever. But in reality, it's so much more messy than that, the creation of things.
Well, there has to be a lot of strategy involved. Like
Yeah.
you do have to stay relevant in the sense of staying on. Like, and yeah, I mean, it's just in the past, art was like something that you waited years for, and then now it's like I want new every day, and that's just not realistic for any person doing anything creative. Like you need the time to live and feel and think and breathe, and then you can create something new.
Yeah.
But that's not the pace of social media. So you just got to do whatever works for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a message you don't hear a lot on social media. It's not do whatever works for you. It's do the grind, period, or else.
Fuck the grind.
How do you stay like inspired? Like, what are the things that like, is it travel? Is it long walks on the beach? Is it, like.
Are you building her online dating profile? I think you are.
Netflix and chill with your puppy? Or, like, what are the things that you find most beneficial?
I do think rest is a really big part of it. It feels cheesy because I know everyone's like talking about it, but I mean, I think that I am anti-grind a little bit. Like, I've done it, participated in it so much, and I think now that I'm working for myself, I'm in this kind of like magical, frustrating space of like, what does it actually look like whenever I get full control over how I want to participate in work and rest, and what does balance look like for me. And so I'm trying to put in lots of different types of pockets in my day, like having fun. Like I started roller skating, and so doing things like that I feel like is really inspiring because it's a lot of play, which I feel like I haven't really had in my life. I'm trying to read more to just like get my brain moving and get my thoughts going. Trying to take in art in ways that just moves me, like reaching out for the type of art that just makes me feel something, because I am like a really feelings driven person. And yeah, I mean, I think also too, like I'm a little bit more social than I want to be. Like, I think I like the whole like super mysterious, super introverted like artist thing, but I have found, especially through the pandemic, like being like a pretty lonely time of being like, oh, I am somewhat energized whenever I'm like around really good people and we get to like have really meaningful conversations. Like it's really simple stuff, but I do feel like being outside, making room for play, making room for rest, connecting with like safe, good people, like those things are inspiring because they make me feel in my life, and then from there I can use that energy to keep up with what's going on in the world and sit with really difficult things and find my interpretation of that and share that. It's like a more holistic view of inspiration. For me, I'm changing that a bit because before it was just like I got to keep up with what's going on, and my inspiration is current. My inspiration is just like the current narrative and like how do I fit into that, and I'm shifting that a bit because that's what's going to be more sustainable for me. I really don't want to burn out, and I feel like it could have happened really quickly before, and probably did for a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I very much resonate with the sentiment of wishing that you could be the like moody, mysterious artist and feeling like I have friends who are like that and I just admire them so much, and I'm like just way too extroverted and like excited to do that,
I'm moody, but I overshare like crazy.
Yeah.
No mystery here. Very moody. Don't worry.
Yeah. So it's I mean, you just got to accept the way that you are at the end of the day. And that doesn't make you a worse artist, which I think is the thought that I've had at times where it's like, oh, if I'm not as, reclusive and cool and
I can go
like,
live in a house up on the hill. Kind
yeah,
of thing.
and I'm like, I just don't want to do that.
I love it. I'm just like, yeah, it's my dream to like live in a house in the woods and just write all day. That's what I want to do. So
I do love that, but I also have like too many mental health issues to be by myself.
Just honestly, amongst your thoughts.
That's going to end poorly.
honestly, like same. So
The idea is nice.
yeah,
It's a nice thought.
It's a nice thought. It is. I'm just like, maybe for a week, and then we'll see how weird it gets.
I don't relate to any of this. I mean, you guys are all wonderful and beautiful, but being in a reclusive cabin by myself up in the woods sounds a little bit scary.
Oh my gosh.
I've listened to too much true crime.
Yeah. I know how
I'm
that
like,
goes, and it
come
does
on my
not go
property,
well.
see what happens.
I know what's in the woods.
Yeah. I'm not going there.
I mean, it depends on what's in the woods, right? Like, if it's a coven, like, peace, do your thing. But if it's, like, a crazy axe murderer white guy, like,
fine,
I'm gonna, like, shoot you from my porch, Like, that's not happening. So.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, the odds of that really happening low. I'm just gonna
That's what they say, but also like,
But like,
the people that happens to didn't think it was
also
gonna happen
people
to
are
them.
like, you're never gonna get eaten by a shark. But like last week, some dude was mauled in Australia and he dead. So
I don't think
It was the first time in 50 years or
Yeah,
something?
that's the thing.
yeah, but
statistically, it is not-
but what about his lived story
Oh, my word.
experience?
I feel like you're kind of erasing his experience.
I'm just saying, you're more likely. It is more probable that you'll die in a car accident. I'm just saying.
No, totally.
I think you have to drive home after.
I'm like, I think of it every time I turn my key.
Gosh. I just, yeah. Wow. All that to say, great thoughts, ladies. I want to pivot slightly. Cami, you mentioned to us before that a lot of your clients are, in fact, women.
Yeah.
And we here at the Women Being Woman. I get annoyed at that. When people say women being, do you get annoyed at that?
Yeah.
It's woman being. But it's an understandable mistake.
Pluralized woman beings.
Yeah.
Just in case anyone was wondering.
Yeah.
Which is
you wanna
fine. It's
pluralize
fine
it,
if you
that's
made
fine.
the mistake. It's okay. It's an easy one to make.
But just don't do it again.
Don't freaking do it again. Or else.
Or Kelly will shoot you from her porch.
Oh,
No,
gosh.
no. Only white guys with axes on a wife beater.
On a wife beater?
In a wife beater.
Okay, anyways. Really just rabbit trailing here. Many of your clients are women.
Love it.
Why do you think that is? And I'm curious to hear just sort of like what you notice as a woman in the art world, in maybe ways that you've seen that you might experience that differently or uniquely, or what has it been like?
Having mostly women clients is pretty dreamy, to be honest. I think, obviously I can't speak for them, but quite a few of them have come from me working with someone else that they knew, had like a really good experience, and then so word of mouth, I feel like between women seems to be like really valuable. I think for most people, it's like if you can get a referral, it's like with someone you trust, then,
For sure.
you'll give it a try. But I just think there's a lot of like easiness and connection. Like I feel genuinely connected to the people that I work with. Like we can hop on a call and like feel really safe, just kind of like exploring ideas together. Like I think that there's a lot of almost like nurturing that comes with these types of relationships, which is, societally like feminine or whatever. But I've had very different experiences working with men than I have with women. Like with women, I feel like there's a little bit more care and time that goes into the relationship that we have creatively. And that's really special. And I think that they feel that too. And then also too, I think that women do value women, like, especially when you're in completely different fields. Like, I think there's there's so much more appreciation and respect and like instant trust, which I feel like I have to earn quite a bit more whenever I work with men. So I love having mostly women clients.
I love
I mean, you know, and also too, I think it's just like women do want to invest in other women.
It's interesting that you mentioned women referencing or getting references from women. I think that we've talked a little bit on the podcast about multi-level marketing schemes. Such as LuLaRoe was, we talked about.
Isn't it so good?
We did a whole episode about the LuLaRoe documentary. You should go give it a listen. But in that, we talk about how a big reason why a lot of these MLMs target women is because the power of the word of mouth is so large amongst like women. And I think in MLMs it's sort of like the stereotype of the like housewives who all like gather together for tea or whatever, and they like, you know, wind up selling things to one another. But I think similarly there's that spirit of women having trust with one another, women wanting to support other women, consciously seeking out women to invest in, which I think is super powerful because honestly, for the standard has been men investing in other men. Men have said, oh, like, I will lift you up, my you know, mentee or whatever, and you will come and eventually take my place in the business world or in the church world or wherever it is. And I think that women being able to now say, okay, I'm going to invest in you. I see value in you as a woman, is a way for women to like take more steps towards equity overall. And so I think that's pretty cool that you're able to, you know, be part of that as you work with other women.
Yeah, I feel like very lucky to be in that position and to have the clients that I do and just the community that I do. I feel incredibly supported, which I think there's so much narrative around competition within women or like infighting, you know, that sort of thing, and have genuinely not experienced that. Like, I've made so many friends within the same realm of art that I do, and like they've been crucial, especially transitioning to working for myself. We've, you know, referred each other for projects that, you know, maybe we can take, and have like shared suppliers and just like things like that I'm like, this is just really beautiful and how it should be. And yeah, it's pretty dreamy, and I'm sure not everyone has experienced that, and I'm sure one day it might be different in another situation, but for right now, it just feels like we want each other to do really well, and that's pretty beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that the idea of like the infighting and I think comes from the mindset that there's not going to be enough.
Exactly.
You know, and historically there hasn't, you know, like,
Right.
and so I think that women on the whole have been shifting a lot in the direction of being supportive instead of, you know, grasping for what little bits of, you know, power or influence or whatever we can get, and recognizing that when we work together, when we lift one another up, it actually is going to be beneficial for all.
Yeah.
There's room at the table.
Yep.
But like I super resonate with that. Like, and it makes sense to me because like I'm the girl that's like, I got the best wax lady, I got the best massage therapist. I like and I love to like pass good people to good people.
Yeah.
Like, and even like I've got some friends that either have their own clothing company or are building their own clothing brand, or like I have a friend who's like trying to launch her own business, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll introduce you to any contacts I have that could help you, just because I actually believe in women-led businesses. And I feel like as women, we tend to want to support each other, especially more so now probably than ever before.
Yeah.
And so I love that camaraderie and that that like I'm willing to share and support, and like actually it doesn't take anything from me. And I would rather like see you succeed than be stressed out about that one client that I might not get, or you know, whatever. So I love that.
So watch out, patriarchy. Women are on the same team now. So
Oh, you're so screwed.
Oh, such a good soundbite. But speaking of, I'm sure working with women has been like you said, a dream. But also, I'm really curious, like, how your art has played a role in possibly healing. Because art, I feel like, is not just, it's like a practice and a lifestyle. And what you're describing of like how you're trying to structure your life, that's very mindful. And I'm just curious to hear how that has played a role in your life.
Yeah, I think whenever you go through something so life-altering, like deconstruction, there's so much of a lifeline in the things that do bring you comfort and that make you feel connected to yourself, to the source of anything that is like good and safe. And writing and art just has been that thing for me. It's been like a companion, essentially, something that I could always lean on, like regardless of what my current circumstances were, which is pretty priceless. And having the access to myself in that way and having the access to process obviously is healing in itself, because I feel like I've met myself so many times through pieces that I've made. And I've impressed myself with the way that I've found phrases to discuss really difficult things, which is pretty irreplaceable. And then further than that, sharing it and having other people feel seen in the things that you're creating is just a full circle moment. And there's just no way that you can't feel whole in that, you know? Yeah. There's no way that that can't be like a little stitch of healing every single time something like that happens within yourself, and then whenever you share it and that happens outside of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love your collection. I think you just launched. It says, "What if it all works out?"
Yeah, the self-care is for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love, as someone with a lot of anxiety that worries a lot, that's been really impactful. Like actually sitting in that, like, hey, what if it all works out? Like at the end of the day, you're gonna wake up tomorrow. Like, you know, your husband's gonna be here. Like, you have your apartment, and like you can keep going. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of comfort in that phrase.
Yeah, it's so simple, but I mean, it's something that I've leaned on for a while, just, you know, having anxiety my whole life, and, you know, learning about positive what ifs essentially is what they're called. And there's like so many that I've gone through, but, you know, catastrophic thinking is something that I'm like very comfortable with. And so having to challenge all of these ways that it couldn't work out or will blow up or fall apart, and something just so simple as that just really interrupts that spiral. Yeah. And it really does shift something inside of you whenever you imagine positive scenarios.
Totally. Especially when you're like, I've envisioned all the not positive scenarios. Yeah. I've ran through it at least 10 times. And that disruption is really beautiful.
Yeah. It's jarring in like the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that idea of positive what ifs. I don't think I've ever heard that phrase before, but I think that's really. I mean, I believe really strongly in the power of using like positive language around things. For example, I recently went on an Instagram stories rant of sorts about veganism. I'm vegan, and people tell me like, you can't eat this, and I'm like, well, no, like I choose not to eat this, or I want to eat something different, you know, like the idea of a can't being put onto me is not helpful, not true, it's inaccurate to the choice that I've made, as if I've been forced into this choice. And so I think that's really powerful to use language to change your mindset around something, to push yourself in a different direction, and maybe that internal narrative will start to shift to positive what ifs rather than the negative.
Yeah.
But all that to say, wow. Okay, I feel like we've covered so many things thus far.
So many things.
We've been talking about art. We've been talking about creativity. We've been talking about deconstruction and church trauma. We've been talking about the patriarchy and
Mental
freaking
health.
Chad and mental health.
Go home, Chad.
Well, no, Chad, you can come to the table as long as you're willing to freaking listen. And so,
And that is to our inner chat as well.
Yeah.
So, all that to say, Cami, we have so loved getting to talk to you. We must now ask you the fateful question that we ask every single one of our guests. And that question is, can you guess it? It is coming. Is what does the phrase woman being mean to you?
This is definitely the only question that was tripping me up whenever I was, mentally preparing to be here. But I sat with it for a little bit, and the feelings that were coming up and the things that were coming to mind was a lot of wholeness. Like woman being to me, the way that it felt in my body and in my brain was like, whenever I can show up like in wholeness of self, like centered within myself with permission to engage in the ways that like feel true and safe to me, like woman being felt like wearing that feeling, carrying that around with you in your body, like standing up really tall and like the truth of who you are, just kind of unapologetically whole, unapologetically you. That's what I felt with woman being.
That's a lovely interpretation of it, I would say. No, I love that. I think that a lot of there's no right answer, but I think that a lot of our sentiment behind it is that idea that we are unapologetically putting ourselves into a place of saying, hello, we are here. We are human beings, and we are woman beings. We deserve a spot. We deserve to take up space,
It just reminded me, as you said, we are here, of Horton Hears a Who.
Oh,
what?
that is such a
Which
good
is
movie.
such a deeply profound book. The idea that a person's a person no matter how small.
Oh, yes.
And this sort of like group of people stand up together and they all yell, we are here, we are here. But they're so small no one can hear them. But when they all yell together, an elephant with the biggest ears hears them.
Yeah, here's the who.
And so, we are here. I know
It is. It's a very...
It's a really sweet story.
I don't think I've ever even thought about it that way until you said we are here. And I was like, oh my gosh, Horton Hears a Who.
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Seuss, very controversial right now, but...
honestly, though, the movie is really good. It makes me cry like every time.
The musical is good. The book is good.
It's
it's a lovely portrait of humanity and hearing the marginalized.
Yeah.
So,
Well, all that to say, I'm sure that after our conversation, the people will want to dive into your little brain a little more, Cami.
they want to buy your art, I'm sure.
Yes. So could you, one, give us any resources that have maybe been helpful to you on your journey, things that you recommend to people, and then also tell the people, where can they find you? Because they are jonesing, I'm sure.
All right. So whenever it comes to running your own business or just being like a creative entrepreneur, Lisa Congdon is someone that I look up to. On Instagram, it's Lisa Congdon, Congdon. She has a podcast where she talks to other artists and entrepreneurs and doing creative work, and their conversations are just like really honest and I feel like really helpful. She's also written a couple of books about more strategically running your own business, like a little bit of a handbook. I really appreciated reading that. There's some really practical insight and just wisdom for how to kind of set up your creative life, your creative business. Blair Money, she is an influencer, online educator, a client of mine and a friend. She wrote a book called How to Get Smarter with Blair Money, and where she covers lots of kind of social justice topics from like race to disability and just a lot of like marginalized communities are represented in there, and she teaches you how to sort of step in and be part of the solution for good. And then whenever it comes to deconstruction or anything around spirituality, Rachel Held Evans' book Searching for Sunday has saved me over and over again. May she rest in peace. So. Oh, and then if you want to find me, Instagram at Zea Ink, that.com is my website. I have products and I do design services and I post pictures of my dog, so you should go follow that.
Your dog is so cute.
Do it for the dog. What's your dog's name? Tell us all about your dog.
Brunch.
She's a corgi. She's almost 3 years old. Someone was like rehoming her on Craigslist, and I just like happened to swoop in and
You're like,
get her.
that's my
How
dog.
A corgi
serendipitous.
named Brunch.
I know.
Like,
I could cry right
yeah,
now.
so cute.
She's pretty special. She's really great.
Aww.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, we will have all those things linked for you guys so that you can easily access all those great resources and so you can easily access Cami and Brunch, the real star of the show. We tried to get Brunch on, but we couldn't afford
was
her.
booked.
So
Her agent was just complicated.
all that to say, thank you so much for just such a good and riveting conversation, Cami. We have loved getting to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed it.
Yeah. You can also follow us at Woman Being Podcast on all the things. Our website is womanbeingcommunity.com. We also recently released a trailer that sort of is people answering the question, what is woman being? And you can check that out on YouTube and on our website and on our Instagram. So watch it every place multiple times.
Show it to your friends. Show it to your mom.
Yeah.
Send it to your email list.
Show it to your dog named Brunch.
She will be watching.
So that's like a fun side project that we just put out and wanted to, advertise ourselves a bit. But all that to say, thank you for sitting with us today and taking the time. We hope that you gained a lot from this conversation. I know that I did. I love talking about the creative process and just everything else that came up today. Those are all on brand. So we would love to hear your feedback. Feel free to, respond to us on social media and all that jazz. All that to say... Gosh. All that to say, I'm going to wrap up this episode and we will catch you guys next week.
Bye.